All right, welcome back to All Cars, y'all. I am John, and it is time for our big end of the year, how the heck is everything going video. This is going to be divided up into 3 different parts. The first is I'm going to talk about the videos that did the best, the stinkers, and 5 or 6 honorable mentions that I honestly thought were going to do better than they did. The second half is going to be some updates about the channel, some major changes that are coming, a big personal update. Might go without some content for a little while next year, but I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute. And then in the third half, we're going to have a Q&A session. I had solicited questions from y'all, I don't know, several weeks ago. I've got a list of them right here. I'm going to run through them and give you at least some quick answers on it. So this is vlog style. Please make yourself comfy in the comfy chair. Grab yourself a beverage of choice. Excitingly, we've got bubbly water today. And just settle back in, because this video, I do this for 2 reasons. The first is at the end of the year, I do go back and look at the channel, at the videos, how everything is done, what's working, what's not, and think about the next year. And I get into the nitty-gritty on that. You may not care, so I will try to put some jumps ahead, some chapters you can skip forward if you want to, but I'm going to do this anyway, so it's good to talk about it with you. It's good to share it with you, because this channel is not possible without you, the viewers. I appreciate you so much. I hope you had a happy holiday. I hope you have a safe new year coming up, and also a special thanks to my patrons. Without them, this channel would not be possible. So thank you so much, all of you, for your support in 2024. So let's jump into it. And we're going to start on a high note with the top 5 videos that I released in 2024. And that's an important distinction, because some of the top videos were not released in 2024. They were actually holdovers from previous year or years that just continued to do really, really well. And that's a little disappointing. Number 5 is my history of the mail truck video. I did a lot of work on this one, and I was really proud of it. And so even though it's number 5, I'm a little disappointed. 63,000 views at this time. Number 4, history of the F-Series trucks, or the Ford full-size trucks, coming in with 65,000 views. And being the number 1 selling truck for so many decades, I honestly expected that one to be mega successful. And it just really wasn't, but still a relatively solid performer. I'm just going to leave my glasses off for a little while. How about that? Number 3, Chevy S10 history, 71,000 views. How this got more than the F-Series, I'm still don't understand, but it gets even more interesting in a little bit. Number 2, the Samsung car. And this one makes me excited, because I had read, if you haven't seen that one, go watch it. I had read something that made a comment about the Samsung car. And I was like, Samsung made a car? And sure enough, they did. I started doing some research. I thought it was a fascinating story that Samsung was like, hey, we've got electronics. Cars have electronics. Let's start a car company. Partnered with Nissan, built a whole factory, and released it right when the Asian financial crisis hit. They struggled along for a little bit, ended up selling most of it to Renault. It still exists, except now it's called Renault Korea or Renault South Korea, something like that. It's a really cool story, and I'm glad a lot of other people found it interesting too, because that one, a little light bulb went off for me. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then number 1 for 2024, the Chevy truck history, the full-size trucks, over 100,000, 106,000 views. Again, it did better than the F-Series. I'm not really sure why, but that one was really exciting, and that one was a beast to put together. Which leads us to the not quite so good list of the bottom 5 released. Now, actually, I've culled this down a little bit. I had some quick videos that I threw out there, some things, some vlog style stuff that got like 600 views. I've kind of ignored those. So these are the ones that surprised me how badly they did. And this would be number 1, the Rivian R3 thoughts. And so Rivian was introducing the R2. They surprised everybody with the R3. I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful. It looks like a Dodge Omni GLH. 3,000 views. Number 4 from the bottom, Why has Fiat not succeeded in America? And everybody always talks about the reliability. My point is they're just too expensive. 3,000 views. What the heck is right with GM? 3,700 views. Now, the what the heck is, it started as a series because I did a video, what the heck is wrong with Lincoln? And it got a lot of views back in 2023, I guess. And I was like, well, I could do a whole series of these. What the heck is wrong with Jeep? What the heck is wrong with, I don't know, Stellantis, things like that. And this only got 3,700 views. And what I learned is people don't want to hear any good news about GM. That's what I think it really boils down to. There's something else there. Number 4 is Toyota the next GM. And again, we're talking about another 3,700 views here. Toyota, I think, is following in GM's footsteps of they are so big and they think they can do no wrong. Their customers think they can do no wrong. And Toyota is, I think, kind of taking advantage of that with the increase in recalls and things like that they've had. I think they are not as careful as they used to be. And the threat to that is, are they going to become the next GM, that they're going to be arrogant, that their customers will always come back to them regardless of whether they have problems with their cars or not. And then number 5, the Cavalier. And this was a story of how the Cavalier went from one of my favorite GM cars to one that I owned, and it actually pushed me away from GM. And I don't think I've had another GM since then. About 3,900 views. And so of these, let's go on. Here's some special mentions for you because I really thought these were going to do a lot better than they did. The biggest one here is the Escort history. I did a whole history on the Ford Escort, and it was possibly the one this year that I put the most effort into. 4,600 views. I can get that many views by picking up a camera and walking around my neighborhood. So that is super, super disappointing. What the heck is wrong with Cadillac? 5,400 views. There's another what the heck that I thought was going to do well, and it just didn't. History of King Midget, 15,000. That's probably not bad for a brand that most people haven't heard of. Then the Dodge Omni and the Plymouth Horizon, the Omni Horizon history, 19,000 views. I thought that one would do better simply because it's a crappy old car from the 70s and 80s, but it lasted forever and so many people have memories of them. I really thought it would do a little bit better. And then, surprise, history of the Ford Ranger from the Chevy Love to today. And Chevy Love, my gosh, what am I thinking? Ford Courier, guys. 33,000 when the S10 did 71,000 views. Go figure that one out. And then the last one I'm going to mention is the Sears car. And this was another one inspired by that Samsung car. And it was, as I said, something my wife had mentioned of like, hey, you should do a video about whether Sears ever sold a car or not. And it made me think, wait a minute, did Sears ever sell cars? They sold everything else. And they did. Fascinating story. Loved it. Loved the story. I loved the research. I loved the video. 42,000, it makes my rank of I thought it would have done better, but it's a relatively new video. I think that one's going to end up being pretty solid. I think I'm not going to make a prediction of where I think it's going to end up, but I think it's going to end up okay. I mentioned it because I thought it would go faster than it has. I thought it might top out and then end, but it's doing okay. But what's the lesson here? This is the second half here we're going to move into is I try to do a lot of different things on this channel. And the big news for 2025 is I'm going to stop doing a bunch of different things on this channel. At least a little bit. I have not finalized my plan. When I look back on this data and I look back at 2023, it's very clear the most popular things I do are those histories. Now, those take a tremendous amount of effort, a tremendous amount of time. They're a lot of work. And that shows in the interest they get. Some of the bottom videos and a lot of the ones I haven't mentioned here, well, honestly, those are more opinions. Those are news. Those are opinions. Those are my thoughts. This year, if you've been following me the whole year, you know I experimented quite a bit with what I called walk and talks, where grab a camera. I've got something on my mind. I walk around. I can get some exercise and talk to you at the same time. Admittedly, this was inspired by people like Tom Scott, who do a lot of outdoor videos, but more on location. This was just me walking and talking, and those tended to just not do well. And there's a comment that many of you have made over the years, and it is that you do a lot of different things, or we can see you trying different things. I want to say you almost never know what to expect, and that's honestly why I started the channel. I think about cars. I want to share my thoughts with you. But that's not how YouTube works. So a couple of years ago, I'd actually asked some other YouTubers with more experience, and the idea is YouTube is trying to find an audience who is going to be interested in content that's being released by a channel. And most of the feedback I got was, look, if you're still talking autos, you should be fine. And increasingly, and I've probably waited far, far too long to come to this realization and internalize it, I'm too broad. I'm too scattershot. You know, when you log into YouTube for a day, you don't know if you're getting a history, a random car review, a thought about the, Carlos Tavares has just resigned Stellantis and was like, y'all just figure it out. You don't know. Or some other random thought that comes along in my head. That's how my brain thinks, but it's not good for the algorithm. And it's not good for people to find. And one thing that jumped out at me this year is the number of people that I would get a subscriber growth, and then I'd release the next video and I'd see people leaving. Because if you're coming here for, let's say, the history of the Ford Escort, and the next video I release is, I don't know why I think Honda and Nissan merging is a bad idea. It's a disconnect with what you expected from the channel. And so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. That's one of the big newses here. Because one of the things I do on this channel, and I do it because I love it, and I do it because you, my longtime viewers, love it. They pretty consistently get good views, just not a lot of views, and it's my reactions. And I think that just adds to the dysfunction in the channel. And so what I'm going to do, and I'm about 99% sure right now, is All Cars is expanding to 2 channels right now. There's going to be this one, which is going to have a little tighter focus on histories, or specifically I want to find those quirky little incidences in automotive history and talk about those, like the Samsung car and the Sears car, or the new Electrovare I just did. These cool little stories. I want to do those while I also do things like, the history of Mercure, things like that. But I think that the reactions don't mesh well with it, and I think it's actually retarded the growth of the channel. So as of the first Thursday in January 2025, All Cars Reacts is going to launch. I've already got 2 in there right now. I'll provide a link to it below. So if you like my reaction videos, go subscribe to that channel and continue to follow them over there. And I want you to keep in mind here, that's going to be a long time before, if it ever does, get monetized. So I'm doing these, but I'm not getting, the $5 I get, $5 or $10 I get off of each one of those videos. I'm doing these because I love it, but I'm trying to tighten up the main channel right here. Now, what that implies is if this is going to become more of a history, quirky connections through automotive history, what am I going to do with when I do want to talk about news, or I do want to get something off my head, I do want to state an opinion, or I do have a chance to review a car? I'm not going to focus on them. I've decided on that right now. There may be a 3rd channel coming. And I know that sounds like a burden. I know some of you are like, oh my gosh, that's too much. Well, you subscribe to them, you get the notifications, and if I'm doing my job right, it's going to pop up in your feed because you're interested in it anyway. But I really need to focus this channel down and get more bang for my buck. 2024 was down in views, it was down in watch time, and it was down in money earned. And it's really disappointing because at the beginning of the year, the channel was going like gangbusters. For several months there, it was throwing off not a lot, but a substantial amount of money, more than I could find the same amount of money scraping through my couch cushions, right? It actually started to feel like something that could be real. and then it all just fell apart. And when I go back and I look at what I was releasing at those times, it was off histories. You know what I mean? It was experiments. It was automotive, but it wasn't resonating with anyone. So I don't want to burden you. I'm not trying to make it more complex. Please stay with me. Go check out the new channel for reactions. And if I do break off into, an all cars news or something like that, all cars opinions, if I do, I'm not convinced I'm going to, I'll certainly let you all know. The second big thing, and this is very personal, I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, is sometime probably in the second quarter of 2025, there will be a lack of material coming out on the channel. I have a health problem that I have to have addressed. It's just a question of when I have to have it addressed. And when I do, it might be a surprise, but if I do and successfully have it planned, the recovery on it is going to be pretty brutal. Please understand, I don't want to tell you too personal about what it is, but it is serious. And when I have it done, there's going to be somewhere between 3 weeks and 2 months that I'm just not going to be able to probably produce any videos and release anything. So please understand, at some point next year, if you don't hear from me, that's why. Okay, also to end on a slightly more upbeat note, I did do one sponsorship this year, which was the Pernus Dashcam, which I am still absolutely thrilled with. The video didn't do well. I'm not surprised, but I wanted to talk about it because I did have people say, oh, here it comes. Hopefully, you're not going to be pushing NordVPN in every single video, things like that. And the answer is no. I don't think so. I have in 2024 and a little bit into 2023, I've turned down multiple opportunities to sponsor things. Now, some of them were really scammy. For example, one of the ones I liked a lot was a Chinese company that contacted me and wanted to sponsor a video and send me a electric charger for my home for my EV. And I could talk about how it works and everything else when I don't actually have an EV. So that one's kind of funny, but I've had a bunch of other ones where people are like, we think your audience is going to be a great fit for us. Well, I don't agree. And so I haven't taken those. Sometimes the money has been pretty good, but it doesn't align with the viewers. And so I've left them off right now, but in the interest of making this a ongoing concern, you might see some more sponsorships in 2025. I don't have anything lined up at the moment. I don't have anybody who I've been talking to who I really think it resonates with the people who watch my videos. For example, if Tire Rack came to me, much like they do with Motor Week, and we want to sponsor, 4 videos in a month, the answer is probably yes. But if Factor, the food company, doesn't really align with us too much. So expect to see more sponsorships, but I wanted to talk about it and just let you know that I am curating these rather heavily. But it'd be nice to have some. Let's put it that way. So let's end with part 3, the third half of this video, which is the Q&A, the questions that y'all have submitted over to me. And let's just talk them through. If you had a choice of what car or truck or SUV would you like to have from the past decades? Decades, you say? Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know, honestly. I can come up with a lot of answers there. Let's put the caveat that it's brand spanking new from the factory, reliable, with a warranty. The thought of going back and having a 70s CJ5 is really, really appealing to me. Imagine if you could go back and have, Stingray Corvette, something like that. I'm going to give you a really dorky answer here. And honestly, I think it would be a Chrysler Cirrus from about 1995. I always wanted one of those cars. I just think they were fantastic. And it's right up the alley for what we do here on the channel, right? It's boring and Chrysler and probably not reliable in the long term, but I would love to have one. What future American car truck manufacturers, I hear that Pontiac might return. What vehicle would you like to see in Pontiac's range? Okay, so that was a joke. I heard the same thing. I almost did a video on it that somebody was talking about. I think it was an ad that was placed somewhere of Pontiac coming back. And GM came out and was like, no, it's not. And I've heard a lot of people throw things around like, you know, Pontiac should be the sporty division. You know, Saturn could have existed as the EV division, things like that. I'm just not a Pontiac fan. I've said it before, you know, they had some really well-styled cars along the way, but ultimately it was just another generic GM platform that was an Oldsmobile and a Chevy and a Buick. And I think General Motors is doing an okay job right now of differentiating the Chevy from the GMC from the Buick. I don't see a space there for Pontiac. If they did, I don't know what I'd want to see return. I mean, part of me says a Trans Am. I mean, the Camaro's gone. Why don't we have a Trans Am? What the Fiero? I mean, if they had unlimited money and they could do something like that, make a new Camaro, make a Pontiac Trans Am, make a Fiero, you know, bring in a new GTO and do it right. The problem is that the easy answer would be to look overseas like Holden, right, or Opel, and bring something like that over here. It didn't work before, but those are gone too. So it's not going to happen. But if they did, I think they would need to come back as a pretty hardcore sporty manufacturer, and not water it down, is what I'm saying. Will you do a team up of other YouTube channels talking industry of cars, trucks, or EVs in this case? Absolutely. I've thought about it. There's one channel that I owe a lot to, and I would like to team up with them. I'd like to do something. I'm even though I do videos, I'm super introverted actually, and I can't bring myself to email them. It's Big Car, by the way. It's Big Car. I can't bring myself to email them and be like, hey, dude, you know, why don't we get on a Zoom call, each record it, ask some questions, talk about the industry, whatever it happens to be, and then we each get content for our channels. I would be very, very open to some stuff like that. I think most everybody knows more than me, but I'd be absolutely open to it, and I'd love to do it with Big Car. I love his channel. I'm always interested in what Americans would have seen come from Australia, cars and utes to the USA. Gosh, man, it's gotta be. So we had those car-based pickups, right? Those car-based trucks, those utes. That's what we would call it. Like the El Caminos back in the day. And like a lot of American cars, they got big and they got bloated. And then we open up Car and Driver and we see these cool things that Holden is doing over in Australia back in the day. I would love those things to come here. Just think that would be so, so cool. Other than that, from Australia, I mean, you guys have some brands that we don't have. So I'm thinking of specifically Holden, but you've got BYD, the electric car manufacturer. You've still got Suzuki, I believe. I think you've still got Mitsubishi. I'd like to see the Jimny and I think it's called the L200. I may be wrong, the Mitsubishi truck. I'd love to see those come here. They may not be Australian products, but they're in your market. I'd love to see them here. Somebody else asked top 5 or 10 EV manufacturers that won't be here in a couple of years, top 5 or 10 legacy manufacturers that won't be here in a couple of years, and 3, just say Stellantis and you are covered for both 1 and 2 above. So I appreciate the question and the humor at the end of it. EV manufacturers, Canoo is going to go belly up. That one makes me very sad because I own a little stock in the company, but I don't know what their freaking problem is. They are ready to go, and they've delivered a car plus some other, and they're just not manufacturing anything. It's like they're all ready to go, but they don't have the money to start manufacturing. It's horrible. I think Rivian is going to be good. I was told by one viewer that in a comment that I slept on Rivian. I don't feel that way about them. I thought they were going to be like Fisker and just disappear. I thought they were a flash in the pan. And the fact that they leaned into the off-road aspect and that culture didn't really resonate with me, because I see one in the neighborhood next door, and that dude is a concrete pounder. But I think Rivian's the real deal. I really do. The more I've looked at them, both corporately and the vehicles, I like what they're doing. I really do. So I think Tesla's there. I think Rivian is going to stay there. I question whether GM's Bright Drop, the delivery vans, are going to stick around, because I think Rivian is just doing such a great job. Lucid, we know what happened there. Canoe, who else am I missing here? I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of them. There's going to be some sorting out, but it's not the big impact on EV manufacturers is going to be in China. If there is any bump in the world economy, I don't even know. China has like, what, 100 different auto manufacturers, something like that. There's going to be a culling in China of EV manufacturers. But here in America, we just don't have that many. So I don't think there's going to be that much impact, but there's a couple definitely I see going away. But as for the legacy auto manufacturers that won't be here, and I'm going to say in the market, not just bankrupt, it'll be hard to justify keeping Fiat here for Stellantis. I think Stellantis, now that Tavares is gone, this actually changes my answer slightly. I am going to go on a limb and say that Chrysler stays. I question whether Dodge does, honestly. Jeep is too big to fail, and Ram, I think, is too big and too important for Stellantis to fail. I think Stellantis will end up cutting or selling a number of brands. Like, easy answers would be DS to be rolled back in as from being a separate brand to being the top of another lineup. I could see if there's a major economic earthquake, I could see Stellantis splitting back apart, or splitting off some others into competition. I'm afraid of that for Volkswagen too. They're cutting what, 30 or 35,000 jobs right now. The numbers aren't working for them and their expensive labor force in Germany right now, and it's a rough time for Volkswagen and GM and Ford and Stellantis and everybody else in the Chinese market. And I know y'all are tired of hearing about China and EVs and everything else, but it's a ginormous market. And the Chinese want to buy, they have some national pride, and they want to buy national products. And I don't know that I see Volkswagen breaking, but I think I have a feeling they could fall pretty far from their pinnacle of being one of the top manufacturers. I think GM's good. I think Ford's going to be okay. Again, I think most of the legacy auto manufacturers are going to be outside the U.S. if there's a major shakeup, and we already see it happening with Honda and Nissan right now. That's going to be very interesting. I'm going to answer that real quick because I'm a Honda fan, and I've had tremendous luck with Nissan, but you've got two different things here. And it's amazing to me because Nissan used to be huge and Honda was this little player. Well, you go back and you look at the sales right now, and it's like this. Honda's the bigger seller. Nissan's close but smaller, but Honda's worth like 4 times of what Nissan is, which is why they're going to be in the driver's seat of the new merger. But Nissan has this reputation of selling cars to people who can get any financing at all and unreliable CVTs, and Honda has their reputation. If Honda's in the driver's seat, hopefully it positively affects Nissan. But I am afraid, much like Renault with Nissan, of bad influences flowing over here to Honda. If it happens, I'm going to have to find another manufacturer that I really love, and the answer is going to be Ford. I'm going to go ahead and tell you all that. Moving on to the questions. What was your favorite car that you owned? what car, SUV, or truck from any era would you like to personally own and drive as a daily? And would you personally buy a hybrid or fully electric? All right, so the first one, favorite car that you've ever owned. I would have to say that maybe it wasn't the most exciting. Maybe it wasn't my favorite, because I could say my Jeep Wrangler. That's an easy one. I loved that vehicle. I could say my Cherokee. I wish I'd never gotten rid of. My first Honda Accord was eye-opening how good Hondas were. But the one that I still kick myself for selling, and it's boring as heck, guys, Mazda Protege. I think it was a 2004. Don't quote me on that. But it was a base engine, 5-speed, silver, black interior, and a sunroof. And I had compared it to a Golf. And if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know I love the Golf. I think the Golf is just about the perfect vehicle. But for the price, the Protege was right there. And I loved that car. And I don't remember why I sold it. I may have sold it to get the Accord, because we were having kids and I needed more space, and my wife would not drive the 5-speed. And I regret to this day I didn't keep that car longer. So probably of the cars I've owned, that's probably the one. Which car, truck, SUV from any era would I like to own and drive as a daily? So the Chrysler Cirrus is probably the answer, right? A Mercury Cougar would be kind of cool. One of the ones from like the late 80s, early 90s. T-Bird from the 80s would be really fun. 1989 Ford F-150. That would probably be the answer, because that would make me happy. It would get me a truck, and my wife loves them. That might be the answer. And then the last one there was, would I personally buy a hybrid or fully electric car? If so, would you park it inside a garage? Okay, loaded question. The answer is absolutely I would. In fact, I've talked since I started this freaking channel and the Maverick came out, I want a Maverick hybrid. There are people who are on the fully EV spectrum that do not believe hybrids are an interim step, but I think they are nearly the perfect answer for people. I love gas mileage, So something that gives me great gas mileage, absolutely. And I mentioned before on the channel that my son has a hybrid and my mother-in-law has a hybrid, and I love them. I just absolutely love them. So yeah, I think my next car is going to be a hybrid. Would I buy a fully electric car? The answer is yes. I have been very vocal on the channel and in videos as I've done my research about the lies around EVs and why not to buy them and how horrible they are, that my final result was, I don't think EVs are quite there. They require me to make compromises for their limitations, something that the petrol-powered cars really don't. But if somebody came to me and said, here's $38,000, here's $45,000, do you want to buy a Model 3 from Tesla? The answer is abso-freaking-lutely I do. They are awesome, and they're like spaceships. And some EVs I'm not excited about. The Area, I don't get excited about it. The Leaf, I'm not really excited about it. They're cool to drive, but I'm not excited about them. The Bolt was awesome, except for recharging on long drives. The Equinox EV is really, really impressive, actually. And the ID4, that's pretty cool. The ID Buzz, too expensive for too little range, but dang, it's cool. So yeah, there's a lot of EVs I would like to have. The Model 3 would be the one I'd be comfortable trying to drive longer distances. I would love a Model 3. It's one of my top choices right now for just car. Would I park it in a garage? Of course I would. There's always a chance that, like they had with the Bolt, that something happens. That was a problem with the battery from the supplier, and my garage burns down or my house burns down. There's always that chance, of course. But mostly, if you look statistically speaking, it's a very minor chance. Yes, I'd park it in the garage unless somebody told me not to. what are your takes on these brands models coming back into reincarnation, like the Scout becoming an all-electric brand, or the new models like the return of the Ford Bronco and Toyota Supra? I feel that some nameplates should just be laid to rest altogether, with people not liking the design or powertrains put into these vehicles. I love it, honestly, and I like it because it feels like they're doing it right. So we had this this retro movement before, when the Beetle came along and the Thunderbird was brought back, the Chevy HHR, things like that, a PT Cruiser, of course. What am I thinking of? Prowler, the Plymouth Prowler. Some of those were better done than others, but the new section of them, like the Bronco, I think it's too big, personally. People who are like, oh, this is just like a Jeep Wrangler. Man, it's not. But I love it. I think it harkens back to the older Broncos. It's real off-road ability. It was missing in the marketplace. I think it's awesome. And it was a focused design. They nailed it. The same thing with the Scout. I love the look of the new Scout. I love that they brought it back. They're making it a whole separate brand. People are picking on it either because they remember something from decades ago and they don't want to let go of it, probably through some rose-colored glasses. Or in that case, it's electric, and they just hate electric. So they think it's some kind of heresy that the car they remember that they love so much is coming back as an electric, as an EV. I think the new Scout is awesome. I really, really do. And I'd like to say the Defender from Land Rover. It's not EV, but they brought it back. Is that Defender anything like the Defender from the old days? Of course not. Is it an awesome vehicle? Yes. Yes, it is. And finally, the Supra. I appreciate Toyota bringing it back. I want them to bring back I want them to bring back the MR2. I want them to bring back the Celica. I want them to bring back the Supra. I'm not a big fan of the sports cars they've got, and that includes the Supra. It's impressive, but there's nothing there that makes me desire it at all. That new Prelude from Honda, however, that gets me excited, and I'm glad they brought that nameplate back as well. And then the last one is, we'll wrap up with this. What 5 cars where I disagreed 100% with Motor Week? And it could be 5 from the 80s and 90s, etc. I can't say that I have 5 that I have 100% disagreed with Motor Week. There's been some where at the end of the reaction video, I've been like, I disagree with who they compared it to. Or I've laughed and been like, they've been very careful in how they worded it. That, 0 to 60 was 13 seconds. It's competitive. They've been very careful about how they worded some things. But I can't say there's one that I've had this question for a while. There's nothing in my mind where I've been like, man, that was wrong. They were wrong. I disagree with it 100%. Sorry to disappoint you. I don't have a strong feeling on that one. So we're going to wrap it up here because this is super long. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support through 2024. I appreciate your ongoing support in 2025. Like I said, I am going to move my reaction videos in the future. There's the big one, if this all comes out when I think it's going to, the big one that came out last Thursday is the last one. And first Thursday in 2025, we're moving to AllCarsReacts, and just let me know your thoughts below, guys. I appreciate you being here. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Be safe. Be healthy. Let me know any questions for the next one. Thanks, y'all.